The recording is about to stop. You are recording. Recording is started. Now, in the student also, the sector also you are already can be divided into this. Nothing. Otherwise, it's not absolutely correct though. There is one important function. The principal parts are below the thorax, which obviously is not the abdomen, but to be more precise, the exact part where the reproductive organ must be present on this cavity is not this cavity is the pelvic. So answer to the question that which cavity contains the reproductive organ, either of the gender. Now, not everything was demonstrated. Whatever is demonstrated, let us start with that. Basically, the male reproductive system is, you can say that it is not even outside the body, outside the reproductive system. So, there are connections to the pelvic cavity, but the principal organs of the male reproductive system outside even the pelvic cavity. That particular area is known as the scrotal sac. Why is this so? Because the zygote form production means some temperature lower than the body. So, I mean, cooler, the better it is. So, it's ensured by its own body build up that the location of the production of sperm that we call as the testicles of the not present in the womb of the body. That particular area is known as the scrotal sac. Because bottom is the area inside which now the testicles are a kind of almond shaped structure. And though not shown in this particular model, if we make a section of this testicle, we will find multiple connectivity to septa, different shape of the testicle. Say, if this be the size of a testicle, it is not actually for the sake of understanding.
হ্যালো স্যার,
Then this is yes.
বলছি একটু ক্যামেরার সামনে আসলে কথা বলবেন, শোনা যাচ্ছে না।
So I mean, probably in the recording my voice will be clear. How was the voice? It was full. How was the injection? What I'm trying to do is I'm getting more close to the camera or I'm bringing the tripod even more. Either way. Am I now better audible? Okay, some adjustment has been made by the. What's your name? Ayub. Okay. Ayub has made some adjustment. It has confirmed the audibility now. Is it better?
অডিবিলিটিটা অতটা হচ্ছে না, মানে যদি দূরে যান তো শোনা যাচ্ছে না, একটু কাছে আসতে হবে, মানে ক্যামেরার কাছে।
কত কথা আছে?
এখানে আসলে তাও শোনা যাচ্ছে। Your video is paused.
দেখি আমারটা দিকে মনে হয় হবে। তো করবো Okay, Pritha, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
তোলো তো আমারটা কলেজে এই রেকর্ডিং কে করছো? You have joined a meeting that is being recorded. ওই রেকর্ডটা আমি অফ করলাম তো।
আয়ুব করছে।
Are you recording, Pritha?
নো স্যার, আয়ুব করছিল এই রেকর্ডিংটা।
আচ্ছা আয়ুব করছিল আগে, সেটা তো আমি করছিলাম। এটাকে ঠিক আছে একটু তুলে দাও। দেখা যাচ্ছে নাকি কেউ একদিন জয়েন করে? So, Ayub is there in the online meeting as well. Ayub visible? দেখা যাচ্ছে আমাকে? হ্যাঁ? লিভ হয়ে গেছে। লিভ হয়ে গেছে, তোমাকে এখন এখনো দেখাচ্ছে। পৃথা কনফার্ম whether I am visible or not? What you want? Why you are not what, Pritha?
I'm saying you are not visible, but you are audible.
I am not visible, but I am audible.
Yes, sir.
আমাকে দেখা যাচ্ছে? ভিডিও অন আছে। Hello, তোমার নেটওয়ার্ক might be. See, I am already checking with other students' cell phone as well, but I am visible. Anyways, I will start the.
Not full.
Sorry?
পুরোপুরি দেখা যাচ্ছে না স্যার আপনার হাফ বডি দেখা যাচ্ছে উপর থেকে কি মানে হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে
আমি মডেল হিসাবে থাকবো না। এবার ঠিক আছে? Clear? Let's begin then. What are the instructions? Who is recording again? মেয়েটাই বুঝতে পারছি না unnecessary যে জিনিস রেকর্ড হচ্ছে বারবার। Reproductive system. I hope there will be no more interruptions. Let's pray for that. Reproductive systems. There are 4 organs, principally 4 organs in both the two genders, of which I was demonstrating the male reproductive system. And in the male reproductive system, I have just mentioned the name of a structure that is present outside the central cavity. Most of the body's organs are localized in the central cavity, right? But for the male reproductive system, the principal organ, that is the testicles. The testicles is the location where the male gamete, that is the sperm, are produced, and not only produced, they are even stored. Right. The testicles are present outside the body's cavity in a particular sac, and that sac is known as the scrotal sac. So inside the scrotal sac, the testicles are kind of almond-shaped structures, inside which there are, you can say, partitions. And these partitions lodges small tubules. Those tubules cannot be shown in this model because those tubules are actually microscopic tubules. Those tubules are known as seminiferous tubules. Now, the walls of the seminiferous tubules do have the cells that contribute to the formation of the spores. Now, these cells, once they are mature, I mean, there are stages from the, say, for example, spermatids, and finally there is the spermatozoa. Spermatozoa, even before they are formed as the final spores, there are primary spermatozoa, secondary spermatozoa structures. But all these intermediate stages and the final mature stages are only to be formed is only this one single organ, that is the testicles. Now, from the testicles, there ascends a tube. In my model, on both the sides, these tubes are having blue colors. That tube, we can see somewhat even inside, is even protruded into the pelvic cavity. Sorry, this might not be the tube of the vast difference. So this particular tube is known as the vast difference, but the blue color that you are seeing here are not the tube of the vast difference. They are the femoral veins. So do not get confused, because during the practical this can be a question of whether this is the continuation of the Gauss difference or not, being both the two colors, can be a confusion, right? But this is not the continuation of the Gauss difference. Now, the Gauss difference, after ascending upwards, just below the urinary bladder is very clearly visible. This elevation is the urinary bladder. Okay. Just below the urinary bladder, there is a tube that belongs to the excretory system. That tube is the urethra. And at the base of this urinary bladder, the Gauss difference joins with the urethra. And that urethra is continuous to the organ of ejaculation, that is the penis. So what is formed here, minus upwards, descends below the urinary bladder, joins with the common urinary passage. And as the joining occurs, the term for the male area out here assumes as the urogenital system. Because the urethra that is present inside this penis carries both the urinary waste material, that is urine, as well as during copulation, it does also carry the reproductive material, that is sperm. So that's why being the common passage shared by both the reproductive system and the excretory system, this area out here is also known as the urogenital system. Clear? So what are the organs that are demonstrated here? The scrotum, inside the scrotum is the testicles. The vas deferens, this is the stretches the vas deferens. Nothing more can be demonstrated, or I shall try out whether this can be removed in form. So with this removal, we can even see what is present, I mean, on the lateral view. Let me bring this thing very close to show you this urinary bladder. This thing can be parted to give you an idea that this bladder is actually hollow. So this hollow, this hollow. So this bladder stores the urine, and from the base of this bladder, from the base of this bladder, there is a tube. These tubes is the urethral passage. Clear? And this tube is the common passage for both the reproductive as well as the excretory. So that's why this area is known as the urogenital system. Now, even below this bladder, there is an organ that you have noticed before, this one. This is the prostate gland, contributing significantly to the seminal fluid. The fluid that is discharged during the copulation is mostly contributed by the prostate gland. Apart from that, there are a few other vesicles as well. As for example, there is something called seminal vesicle that can be seen here, the seminal vesicles. Okay, and downward below the seminal vesicle, this entire tissue is the penile tissue, of which this is the corpora spongiosum, and this one on the top is the corpora cavernosum. So these are the two principal structures that we find as the constituents of this organ called the penis. Okay, and what else to demonstrate here? Nothing more. Let me give you the look again. Testicles, vas deferens. Here, and you might be asked that what is this then? Just behind you, the urinary bladder. What is this structure? This is a part of the digestive system. This is the rectum. Okay, this is the rectum and this is the anal gland. Okay, and technically there is another area from which, as a medical laboratory technologist, we might have to collect pus. ঠিক আছে, এখানে অনেক সময় অ্যাবসেস হয়, তো অ্যাবসেস থেকে পাস কালেকশন করতে হয়। So this particular area in between this anal orifice and the scrotum, this area is known as perineum. Understood what is perineum? So in this model, I have demonstrated perineum. Let me recap it short. I have demonstrated perineum. I have demonstrated scrotal sac. I have demonstrated testicles. Penis is very clearly demonstrable. The prostate gland, the urinary bladder, corpora spongiosum, corpora cavernosum, seminal vesicles. Okay, these are the parts of the reproductive system present in this particular specimen. Apart from that, part of the digestive systems are also to be seen. That is the rectum and the anal canal. And you see out here that there are two, cord-like, or these are actually tube-like. One is the blue color is the vein. This is the femoral vein, and this one is the femoral artery. Okay, huh? I can hear you. No, not Mahadhamani. Mahadhamani is known as aorta. Okay, Mahadhamani, Mahashira, they are known as aorta, or Mahashira is known as vena cava, superior and the inferior vena cava. Actually, the Mahadhamani that you are telling now branches here, right? It splits into two sides. And if I keep this specimen back into its position, so you see, on keeping it is continuous with this femoral artery and the femoral vein. Okay, clear? Now in this place, we can replace this part with the female part. I will give you a section as well, because in our laboratory we are having diagrams of section. From that we will demonstrate again. So this is the female part. We can keep it something like this. So this can be kept something like this. Okay. Now on this demonstration, we will note that the concept of urogenital system is lacking here. There is no common passage that is carrying both the urinary excretory waste or the gametes, the reproductive material at the same time. The rectum is still very clearly visible out here. This is the rectum. Now see that the principal organ to be found out here is this one. And this organ, I don't know whether it is visible in the phone or not. Somebody check whether it is visible, or let me bring the phone out here. Is it visible? Check. The uterus is the principal organ that I need to demonstrate. I'm pointing to this area.
It's visible.
This one. Yeah, it is visible very clearly. Thank you. So this particular organ is the uterus, and this is where either on the failed reproductive attempt the bleeding is going to start from, or the successful reproductive attempt the fetus is going to develop. Correct. Now, if you take this model outside, let me show you that on the sides of this uterus there are folds of tubes. Notice? These folds of tubes are known as the fallopian tubes. And at the end of the fallopian tubes, see these swollen areas? These swollen areas represent the ovaries. So this one is the ovary, the swollen areas. These are the two tubes. Okay, speaking more specifically, the topmost one is representing the fallopian tube, and the bottom one out here is a ligament that supports the ovaries. If it's not visible.
fallopian tube to one.
Correct. Eta operetta. This one on the top is the fallopian tube. Okay. Notice this is on the top of the fallopian tube, and on the bottom, what you see is the round ligament that is supporting the ovaries. It is a round ligament. Operetta fallopian tube, eta fallopian tube is
Ligament.
ligament. কারণ হচ্ছে ওভারিটাকে যাতে সাপোর্ট করবে। ঠিক আছে?
আর এটা হচ্ছে ওভারি।
এইটা ওভারি। ওপরেরটা fallopian tube, নিচেরটা রাউন্ড ligament, এটা হচ্ছে ওভারি। ঠিক আছে? Everybody? আচ্ছা। Now, what I have shown is I have in a sagittal section. I mean, the entire structure of the reproductive system is something like this. A kind of mid-sagittal section is now helping me to understand the inside of the uterus, that is the hollow one. Okay. Now, can't see. This is the hollow inside of the uterus. This needs to be hollow because I am not searching for it.
সরি এক্সপ্লেইনটা কি হবে?
কোনটা?
ইউটেরাসের এই হোলটা
এটা ইউটেরাইন ক্যাভিটি। এটা ইউটেরাইন ক্যাভিটি, এর বাইরে একটা আছে লেয়ার। এই যে তিনটে অ্যাকচুয়ালি লেয়ার আছে। হ্যাঁ, the innermost layer is important, কারণ এই innermost layer implantation হয়, or menstrual bleeding the innermost layer থেকে হয়। The name of this innermost layer is searching for network. Okay. Okay. This innermost layer is known as endometrium. Or network of. So the innermost layer is known as the endometrium. Okay, and the thickness, the major thickness of this muscle is myometrium. Okay, it is myometrium. Now, see, this uterus itself can be divided into three parts. Okay, one part is the topmost part, that means it is present above where the fallopian tubes are connected. Yes. Say for example, if this be the level of the fallopian tube, fallopian tube, fallopian tube to connect. At the level where I am pressing my finger, this should be the level where the fallopian tubes remain connected. So see that above this level there is a part of the uterus. And this part of the uterus above the level of the fallopian tube is known as fundus. Or is known as the fundus of the uterus. And similarly, below the fundus, the big part of this cavity is known as the body of the uterus. Okay? And if you follow this body very closely, you will find a narrow cavity. This is narrow. You need to know this because this is where the females do suffer from the majority of their cancers. This is known as cervix of the uterus. This narrow part, cervix basically means neck. Neck is always the narrow part. On the neck is the head. Again, below the neck is the torso. Okay. So the cervix is here. You people, the medical lab technologists, would have to collect multiple specimens. Exactly so. Okay, just to find out whether cancer is present or not, because on the specimens collected from this cervix, we will have to perform biopsy. Okay. I mean, if I teach that subject of histopathology, then I will show you how to perform a biopsy of this area. Now, look very closely that this cervix, I mean, this entire red colored mass is the hollow parts. This area is representing all the hollow structures. So, there are three hollow areas. One is of the uterus. In front of the uterus, see, with this rough, ragged margin, there is another cavity. This cavity is of the urinary bladder. So, similarly, see that another cavity is out here. This is of the rectum. So, in the females, this reproductive organ, this one, is present in between the urinary bladder in the front and the rectum at the back. Clear? Now, the term that I use for demonstrating the male's urogenital system is not at all applicable in the females. Let me show you how and why. See, the passage for the reproductive materials, how it is communicating to the outside. This is the outside part, known as vulva. This is the vulva. Okay, so this cavity after the cervical area is projecting into this part. This stretch is the vagina. The vagina is a tube that is connecting the outside to the cervical tube of the uterus. And this is the vaginal orifice. That means the opening through which either the menstrual blood will pass out or through which the developed fetus will pass out. But see, for the urinary passage out, the opening is just on the top. So this stretch is the female urethra, which is actually very short. And the openings are different. The urinary opening are on the top of the reproductive opening. So being these two systems separate in anatomical terms, the term urogenital system is not at all applicable. Understood? Why? Urogenital system term is not applicable for the female reproductive system, and why it is applicable for the male reproductive system. Okay, why it is applicable for the male reproductive system? Let me show you this continuity again. I have already shown you urinary bladder, okay, the prostate gland. See, here the fusion begins from. Prostate gland is receiving the vas deferens, uniting with the urethra. The urethra is now the single common passage. But for the females, passages are separate and different. Okay, so this is the reproductive passage out. This is the urinary passage. Okay, and what? These are the principal organs. What you can see here are actually made up of different, these yellow colored areas. They are either made up of muscles or even the fats, because fatty muscles are present all around. Okay, so to recapitulate of the female reproductive system, the uterus is demonstrated, the fallopian tube is demonstrated, the round ligament is demonstrated, the ovary is demonstrated, the vaginal tube is demonstrated, the female urethra, though not a part of the reproductive system, but is demonstrated. The cervix, the most, clinically significant area for medical laboratory professionals, this is demonstrated. Okay. And what else? If in future you are willing to learn how to conduct, say for example, amniocentesis, okay, or CVS, that is chorionic villus sampling, then I will demonstrate that how the fetus will present here and how to insert your needles just to collect the fluid out of this uterine cavity. Or chorion is a specialized organ that develops only during the gestation when the baby is being developed. Okay, so in those stages, how to collect the chorion, how to find out from outside the exact position of the baby, so as to identify where from to collect the chorion, or in which direction to insert our needles in. So all these things are clinical things. All those things are clinical things. We will come to those things when the need will arise. Okay. One last thing I would like to mention, that is some pouches are present out here. In between the urinary bladder and the uterus, there is a fold of the inner covering. I mean, this entire cavity is all around lined by a common layer, and that layer is known as peritoneum. Okay, so similarly, over the pelvic cavity also, the peritoneum will be covering up, and as it covers up, one fold of such peritoneum remains present in between the urinary bladder and the uterus. Similarly, another fold is also present in between the uterus and the rectum. So out here, there should be another fold. Okay, so these folds are having two names. One is known as a recto-uterine pouch. Recto-uterine means rectum, and the uterus. In between them, there is a recto-uterine pouch. In front of the uterus, that means in between the urinary bladder and the rectum, there is another pouch. Get a fold of the peritoneum again. That pouch is known as the pouch of Douglas. Okay, this is a very important area, the pouch of Douglas, because we sometimes need to examine whether any fluid is deposited in the pouch of Douglas or not. I mean, if we hold it somewhat anatomically, then we will find that this pouch of Douglas is the area where once a fluid enters, we find it very difficult to exit. See, there is wider, but this is very narrower. And this is much more in length and more in horizontal orientation, but this is more in vertical orientation. So fluid entering into the recto-uterine pouch is easy to exit than the fluid entering into the pouch of Douglas. Okay, so we need to examine that. We need sometimes to collect the fluid out of to find out the penetration is present. Okay, so nothing more. This part is over the skin, the mons pubis, and all that stuff. This much. Okay, now if questions are being asked from even the charts that are present, so let me put this thing down. If we show into the camera, this shot, and the 3D model is also present up here. Chances are high that when we'll be using this particular model, then this index will be covered up so as to examine your knowledge. So after covering it up for the lessons that you already have learned, you people have a try in identifying the organs. Tell me that which organ is this, which is the anterior side and which is the posterior side of this model.
This
is the anterior, yes. This one is the posterior side. So if the orientations are all not correct, tell me or point me the urinary bladder. It's pointed. Okay. Now point me the vagina. Exactly, that is the vagina. Point me the uterine cavity.
Uterus cavity.
Yeah.
Cavity.
Okay. Better you call this as the uterine cavity. In fact, this is a highly muscular organ. It has to be muscular because at the time of postulation, at the time of delivery, if this muscles does not contract, does not produce a kind of squeeze kind of action, the fetus would not get delivered out. Okay, so that's why this is a hollow organ, thickly muscular. The name of the muscle present here is known as myometrium. Okay, and this muscle contracts again with a hormone from this pituitary, from the base of the brain, oxytocin. Okay, so the cavity in otherwise, when there is no development of the fetus, is actually a kind of a potential cavity. I mean, cavity is a narrow one. Only when the fetus is developing, then the cavity enlarges. Okay, so here the narrowness is very clearly shown. Clear? Okay, now point me the ovary.
Ovary.
Is the blue one ovary or is the red one ovary? The red one is ovary. Point me the round ligament.
Round ligament.
Yes.
Huh.
Again, the color is blue or red for the round ligament?
Blue type. Rota হচ্ছে ligament.
Exactly. The tube is the fallopian tube. Round ligament is the small part beside, below the square part. Okay. Now, say of this fallopian tube, there actually I said that there are even subparts. I'm going to tell you the name of the subparts. Point being, the uterus, the cervix of the uterus.
Uterus. Uterus of the uterus.
এই জায়গাটা actually হবে, clear নয়। ঠিক আছে, this point। এখানে 3 দিয়ে ইন্ডিকেট করেছে, তিনটা করে লিখে হচ্ছে সার্ভিস। ঠিক আছে, কিন্তু সেই ন্যারোইংটা বোঝা গেছে কন্টিনিউয়াস, এখানে ন্যারোইংটা বোঝানো যাচ্ছে। ছবি রেকর্ডিং হচ্ছে, এখানে যেমন ন্যারোইংটা ক্লিয়ার, এখানে কত ওয়াইড ক্যাভিটি আর সার্ভিক্সের জায়গাটা কত ন্যারো ক্যাভিটি। ঠিক আছে। Okay, so that's an overview. এই জায়গাটা দেখো, in that particular model it was not very clearly shown, কিন্তু কিছু finger-like projections রয়েছে। So this finger-like projection at the terminal part of the fallopian tube is known as the infundibulum. Infundibulum actually kind of catches the ovum as it is shed each month. Okay. And here this part, the junction between this uterus and the fallopian tube. In this diagram, actually then it should be this one. Hold it. It should be passed with this one, the junction between this fallopian tube and the uterus. This junction between this fallopian tube and the uterus is known as isthmus. Isthmus. Okay. And if you see, though not very clearly shown also, there is a dilated part of the fallopian tube that is known as the ampulla. Why is that important? Because that is the location where usually fertilization is supposed to take place. Ampulla or ampulla, pronunciations are both in use. Okay, so this is in short the reproductive system. So I will now terminate this recording, and I will now call the other. আরেকটা হতে পারে কি, তোমরা ওখানে গিয়ে বলো যে রেকর্ডিংটাকে একবার দেখতে চাও, তারপরে আমি স্টপ করছি। ঠিক আছে, আচ্ছা, তোমাদের আর কি বাকি রইল? আমি রেকর্ডিংটাকে অফ করি। Here I am showing another model of the male reproductive system. Now people will try to find out. I have covered up the label. So let me point out, as for example, what is the name for this particular area? This is the prostate. What is the name for this brown color?
Urinary tube.
Do not confuse it. This is urethra.
Urethra.
I am repeatedly telling you, this is getting recorded, that there are 3 very closely pronouncing words. And all those 3 words are referring to the organs out in this pelvic area only. What are those 3? First one is uterus, that is exclusively for the female reproductive system. I have shown you here where the uterus is. I'm not going to repeat anymore. So this one is the uterus, the uterine cavity. Another is the urethra. In males, that is common for both the reproductive as well as the excretory waste, urethra. But in females, they are separate. I'll show you that. And the third word is ureters. This ureters has nothing to do with the reproductive system, but rather it has many importance in the excretory system. The tubes that are connecting the kidneys and the urinary bladder, I will show you in the upcoming period of today's class itself. We'll have a look into the excretory system as well. Clear? 3 words: uterus, urethra, ureters. Okay, of that, ureters is the excretory tube connecting the kidneys and the bladder. Clear? Okay. Coming now to the reproductive system. So you said that this is prostate. Fine. What is this organ in white color? Okay, see, do not call this as the scrotal sac. Scrotal sac is this entire structure. Inside the scrotal sac, this almond-shaped structure is the testis or the testicles. Testis or testicles, both are applicable. Now, surrounding the testis and the testicles, you just know that there are two layers. Notice. One is known as tunica albuginea, and this one is tunica vaginalis. I think you have heard a name of a disorder called hydrocele. Fluid accumulates in these testicles and the entire scrotal sac becomes enlarged. Only way to extract this fluid out and to evert the layers. These are the only ways. Okay. So, if this be the testicles, what should be then this structure known as? Sorry, this nuclear structure. This is the vas deferens. Correct. Okay. Now this vas deferens is entering into the prostate, joining with the this one. This is the urethra. Okay. And what else? What is the name of this tissue in the penis? I mean, above dorsal to the penile urethra. The urethra do have multiple parts, right? One part is in the bladder, another part is through the prostate, another part is moving into the pelvic cavity, another part is inside the pelvis. There are actually 4 different parts. Accordingly, there are names also: prostatic urethra, or penile urethra, or cystatic urethra. Okay, I'm not going that much about details. Now tell me what is the name? There are 2 layers of corpora spongiosum, another is cavernous. Okay, here, and that's all. What is this name of this structure? Rectum. Fine. What is the name of the skin in between this stretch between rectum and the scrotum? That's how I said. Pus accumulates sometimes. People can suffer from abscesses due to poor hygiene in this area. So, laboratory technicians need to collect pus. So, what is the name of this particular area? Starts with P. Perineum. Do not confuse again. This is perineum, but inside this is peritoneum. Okay, I mean, these two again are very closely sounding words. That's why I remove the confusion. Okay, so that's all the summary of this. Now I will begin the excretory system. Yes, maybe stop the recording, please. Seminal vesicles would be at the base of the prostate. যেটা এখানে ছিল এই the prostate gland piece এখানে ছিল বেস এগুলো কিভাবে পড়ানো হবে ডিসেকশন ঠিক আছে এগুলো তো অ্যাকুরেসিটা কতটা থাকবে না সেগুলো সব কিছু করতে হবে Обожди, он еще дышит. И готово. Вообще, я говорю, барбарики да. Вообще да. барбарики да, অবশ্যই একটা চলে যাচ্ছে কারণ আগে শেষ নেই। বাইরে চলে যাও কারণ আওয়াজ শুনতে গেলে এই করতে হবে সেটা ফিডব্যাক করতে হবে। ঠিক আছে ভালো আছে ঠিক আছে ভালো আসছে চলো রেকর্ডিং করছি
হ্যাঁ স্যার
বুঝলাম একজন কথা বলে ঠিক আছে এবার যাদেরগুলো অফ করে দিতে পারো ডিসজয়েন করে যেতে পারো আর ওদিকে কেউ একজন পৃথকে জানিয়ে দাও বা যারা জয়েন করে তারা যেন জয়েন করে আচ্ছা this is a short revision again to the next batch that is the female reproductive system. This is the anterior view front side, this is the posterior view or basically this is the inner view ভেতরে থেকে তো প্রিন্সিপাল যে অর্গান যেটা তোমরা বলে এটা হচ্ছে ইউটেরাস আর ইউটেরাসের পেছন দিকে এই যে আমরা যেটা দেখছি এটা পার্ট অফ দ্য ডাইজেস্টিভ সিস্টেম আর ইউটেরাসের সামনে একটা পার্ট থাকে সেটা আমি যখন এটা সেকশনটাকে দুটো আলাদা করে যখন দেখাবো তখন ক্লিয়ারলি দেখা যাবে সেটার পার্টটার নামটা হচ্ছে ইউরিনারি ব্লাডার The uterus is present in between the urinary bladder at the front and the rectum at the back. আর দুটো সাইডে ইউটেরাসের দুটো সাইড দিয়ে আমরা যেটা এখানে দেখতে পাচ্ছি এটা হচ্ছে দুটো ফ্যালোপিয়ান টিউব হ্যাঁ খুব ভালো করে দেখাবার চেষ্টা করছি এই যে টিউবটা এটা হচ্ছে ফ্যালোপিয়ান টিউব আর এই ফ্যালোপিয়ান টিউবের একদম প্রান্তে এই যেটা ফুলে ফুলে রয়েছে মোটা দু চামড়ার যে অংশটা দিস ইজ দ্য ওভারি ওভারিটা কিসের দ্বারা সাপোর্টেড থাকে একটা ওভারিয়ান লিগামেন্ট আছে সেটা এখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে আমি মনটাকে দেখাচ্ছি ওভারিয়ান লিগামেন্ট ঠিক আছে এই ওভারিয়ান লিগামেন্ট দিয়ে ওভারিটা সাপোর্টেড থাকে তো প্রিন্সিপাল যে চারটে অর্গানস তার মধ্যে থেকে তিনটে এখানে জানতে পারলাম একটা হচ্ছে ইউটেরাস একটা হচ্ছে ফ্যালোপিয়ান টিউব একটা হচ্ছে ওভারি and the other principal organ যেটা ইভেন মেডিকেল ল্যাবরেটরি টেকনিক্যাল জন্য ইম্পর্টেন্ট সেটা আমি তো দেখতে গেলে আমি এটা সেকশন করছি সেকশন করে রাখা যাচ্ছে তো সেকশনে বেসিক্যালি আমরা কি দেখতে পাচ্ছি আমি একটা সেকশন দেখলাম এটা হচ্ছে আমার if this be the front view তাহলে এটা হচ্ছে আমার লেফট সাইডের সেকশন তাই তো this is the left side here so in the left side sectionটাকে নিচ্ছি left side sectionটাকে নিয়ে দেখাচ্ছি যে there are three principal cavities of the bigger one and the middle one is of the uterus this cavity is not the uterine cavity এটা আমার front side anterior to the uterus this is the urinary bladder এটা থাকে একটা এরকম ভাবে ঠিক আছে একটা অ্যান্টিভার্টেড পোরশনস থাকে আর this is the rectum এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের the rectal space বা digestive system space আচ্ছা যেটা fourth one the important fourth organ of the reproductive system that is clearly visible in the section that is this particular organ see that this uterus it's much more swelled out here and as we move downwards it is narrowing and a small stretch just below this narrow uterus. This is a very important stretch because this is where the majority of the female cancers are present, known as the cervical cancer. This area is known as cervix, cervix of the uterus. Okay, now below the cervix, this entire stretch of a tube, this is the vagina. Okay, this is the exit way for all the failed reproductive atoms, that is the intramenstrual fluid outlet. Or the successful reproductive event, that is the fetus outcome. Okay, so this four parts together are known as the female reproductive system. And in front, this is the urinary bladder. Behind, this is the rectum. In between the urinary bladder and the uterus is a small fold of the peritoneum that is known as rectouterine pouch. Similarly, there is again a fold between this rectum and the what is it? This is actually the rectouterine pouch. This is known as the Douglas pouch of Douglas in between this urinary bladder and the uterus. Now, this entire uterus can be divided into three parts. How three? See that the fallopian tube is connecting to the uterus at one level of the uterus. If I place my finger at this level, so around exactly this level, the connection of the fallopian tube is present in the uterus. Right? So this uterus can have a part above this level and a part below this level. The part above the level, the part above the level, this part is known as fundus. And the part below this level, this is known as the body. Okay. And even below that, this is the cervix. The uterus of the part bola. Fallopian tubes are ekhane je partta thake that is connected to the ovary. That part is known as the infundibulum. And The other part is known as the ampulla, and the connection between the uterus and the fallopian tube together. This connection is known as the isthmus of the fallopian tube. Okay, so these are the parts of the fallopian tube and the parts of the ovary. Sorry, of the uterus. We clearly said. Okay. One thing that you must note down is that for the females, the passageway out for the reproductive system and the urinary system are different. This is the urethral orifice. Urethral orifice means through this orifice, only the urine would be excreted. Okay? And this is the vaginal orifice. This is the vaginal orifice means through this orifice, the reproductive elements would be moved out, either the fetus or the menstrual blood. Okay? So the openings are two different. So there is a term urogenital system, but that term is not applicable in this female reproductive system. Okay. Very short data bola. Detailed video also. Now next comes the male. How is the male reproductive system present? Someone like this. This is the male reproductive system. This is how the male reproductive system is present. And again, we are having 4 parts of the male reproductive system. Let me pull out the system and show you exactly one by one. Here, what you are seeing, this top elevated part is the urinary bladder. Now, the male reproductive system to contribute sperm. The production of the sperm is not possible in the temperature that is present in the stomach. Okay, sorry. Pick it up. Okay. So, the temperature in which the sperm will be formed should be lower. Exactly for that reason, the area where the sperms are to be formed, that is known as the testicles, these testicles are separated out or below this pelvic cavity. Okay, so this particular area is known as the scrotal sac, which lodges this the almond-shaped organ, that is the testicles. So from these testicles, there is a tube-like structure. You have to look on both the sides. This is known as the vas deferens, and this vas deferens, after it ascends up, I show you the section. So in this section, so the vas deferens ascent is not very clearly given because it is more towards the sides. But that vas deferens enters the prostate gland. So what is the prostate gland? Consider this hollow space. This hollow space represents the urinary bladder, male urinary bladder. Below that urinary bladder, this elevated area is the prostate gland. And the small part is carrying the secretions of the prostate, contributing to the seminal fluid. Fine. Now this vas deferens is in communication to this prostate gland. And from the prostate gland, the tube that comes out, this particular tube, is a common tube. It is carrying out the urine from the urinary bladder, as well as through the prostate, it is also carrying out the reproductive fluid, that is the seminal. So that's why this particular stretch of the urethra is a common stretch, carrying both reproductive material as well as the urinary material. The term urogenital system is more applicable to the male reproductive system. Clear? This is the short summary of the reproductive system that I have taught in the previous session as well. Now, come to the main system, that is the urinary system or excretory system. Again, to speak of the excretory system, we know that there are again 4 parts. Here, what are the 4 parts of the excretory system? First is a pair of kidneys. The pair of kidneys can be seen in the back side of the process. These are the pair of kidneys. Okay. Now, see that these kidneys are having somewhat bean-shaped structure. Okay. So you have another model of here. Have a look at this model. This looks somewhat bean-shaped structure. On this side, the kidney section, but the section is not available on this side. It is intact. The whole kidney can be seen on this. This particular model is not very accurate because in reality, what happens? If I hold it this way, that means this is better because you see that the right side. This is the right side, right? the right sided kidney is present somewhat bit below than the left sided kidney. Notice. Okay. So this is a relatively more accurate one because in this location, this is the location for liver. Liver, you know, we consider it as the largest gland of the body. So, what? So this is how the liver is present. Largest gland of the body is present this way. And in order to give space to this largest gland, the right-sided kidney is positioned somewhat below than the left-sided kidney. So these two are not present exactly at the same level. Okay, but the shape of the kidney is almost the same. So there is the bean shape, the beans that we consume, and in this bean shape, there is a concavity. This concave structure, this concavity is known as the hilum of the kidney. Okay, because through this hilum, all the tubes that either enters into the kidney or exit the kidney are occurring through only one part of the kidney, and that part is the hilum. Understood what is hilum of the kidneys? You can have a similar hilum for the lungs as well. I mean, if you look into the lungs, only in one part of the lungs all the bronchioles are inside. Not only the bronchioles, but also the pulmonary arteries, the pulmonary veins. All they are either entering or exiting only through the hilum. Similarly, for the kidneys, we are having an area called the hilum. That is the notched area, notched concavity. Right. So having said that, very prominently what you can see are these two tubes. These two tubes are known as ureters. Okay, I am repeating again because these three words apparently for the beginners can be a source of confusion. One word is ureters, that is connecting these kidneys, the pair of kidneys, to the structure called the urinary bladder. Yeah. Another word is uterus. That is what I have shown in the female reproductive system. See the word uterus and the word ureters, this sounds very close, so there is a chance of confusion. So this is uterus, part of the female reproductive system, only present in females. But these structures, the ureters, are present in both the females as well as the males. And there is another word, another word is the urethra. That is the exitway from the bladder. I've shown you the urethra, much more prominent and much more long in the male reproductive system. This channel is the urethra. So there should not be any kind of confusion. I have selectively picked up these confusing words and tried to clarify. So this stands, the ureters, repeat, ureters. This pair of ureters is the second part of the entire respiratory system. What is the function? Function is only to carry the urine that is formed in the kidney to the urinary bladder. That is its only function. Okay. Multiple infections out here or stone formation out here can lead to the improper flow of urine. Okay. Now see, at the bottom of these two ureters, it's very clear in the diagram of the male reproductive system, as well as of the female reproductive system. Of the male reproductive system, these were the urinary bladders. Okay. But is it not possible that our video to borrow for a line? This is what we say. Spotlight to put the power.
তো জয়েন আছে তাহলে স্যার
ওই কোভিড জয়েন আছে।
প্রবীরকে তো একটু বলো না স্পটলাইট তাহলে আমি দেখতে পারবো যে আমি প্রবীর শুনতে পাচ্ছ প্রবীর?
ইয়েস স্যার।
স্পটলাইট করো আমি দেখতে পারবো যে পুরো স্ক্রিনটা যেটা আমারটা কেমন আসছে।
কি স্যার আরেকবার বলুন।
বলছি স্পটলাইট বলে কিছু আছে না যাতে পুরো স্ক্রিন জুড়ে আমারটা আসে, সেটা একটু করে দেওয়া যাবে?
হ্যাঁ করে দিয়েছি তো, আপনারই তো স্ক্রিন আসছে।
তো আমার
ওখান থেকে পিন করেছে আপনি করতে পারেন। In spotlight.
তুমি স্পোর্টের ফাংশন ঠিক আছে স্পোর্টের ফুটওয়্যার হোল্ডস
স্যার আপনি স্পটলাইট
ও আচ্ছা
স্যার এই স্ক্রিনটা বড় করতে চাই
আমি চাইছি আমি হ্যাঁ
স্যার এই স্ক্রিনটাকে বলা হবে স্পটলাইট করা আছে সবাই বডি দেখতে পাবে
এখান থেকে তো হচ্ছে
আমি দেখতে পাবো না এখন আমারটা দেখো সবাই জয়েন করছে বলে এবার আমারটা শুরু
হলো এটা না এখান থেকে
ফুল ফ্রেম হবে দেখো
ফুল ফ্রেম করা যায় রেকর্ডিং
হচ্ছে পারছে না
ফুল ফ্রেম হলে স্যার হয়
ওখানে তো পেলাম না
ওটা যে কাজ করছে না
পেলাম না তো
ফিল্ম করে
রেকর্ডিং লংজিভিটি শেয়ার ডেভেলপিং ডাইরেক্টর মিটিং
একবার ব্যাক করেন স্যার ব্যাক করেন পিনটা কাটে গেছে না না
এই কেটে এই তো
এর কি বড় হবে না করেছে
এটা তো ঠিক আছে তুমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি আমি কি দেখাচ্ছি আচ্ছা যেটা বলছিলাম তো one that I was speaking of is this urinary bladder. This urinary bladder is communicating to the outside with the urethra. So the four parts I have already mentioned: the urethra, the urinary bladder, the ureters, and the kidneys. Okay. Now let me take you a bit more detail into it. Notice that in the hilum of the kidney, there are three tubes. Noticed it? One tube colored in the model with this yellow color, another with the red color, another with the blue color. So what are the names of this tube? For the yellow color, I have already said, that is ureters. The red color are the ones which are carrying the blood from this abdominal aorta. This long one is the abdominal aorta. This is even shown in the torso. This is abdominal aorta. One branch of the abdominal aorta towards the right side moves towards the right kidney, and this is known as the renal artery. Okay, this is the renal artery which is carrying the blood that is having all the impurities, waste materials. What are those? The urea, the uric acid, creatine. All these materials are carried by this renal artery into the kidney. Okay, so this renal artery is carrying it into the kidney. In front of the renal artery is a branch of this particular, this vertically placed blue colored big size tube is the inferior vena cava. Here, this is the inferior vena cava. Now, a branch of this inferior vena cava, known as the renal vein, is present and is seen to enter into this mass of the kidney, which is going to drain the blood that comes into the kidney by the renal artery. I repeat, through the renal artery, blood is moving into the inside of the kidneys. And from the renal veins, the blood is getting drained back into the system, circulation. Clear? So whatever the blood that is entering the kidneys are having all the impurities mixed in it. The function of the kidney is to filter those impurities. And once that is filtered, the waste materials are passed into this urinary bladder. And the remaining portion of the blood that is now free of impurities is sent back to the venous system of the circulation. This is how it goes. Now, if you look into the kidney, what you will find is there is an entire kidney. Temporarily, let me say that, forget this. This is another gland present on the top of the kidney. This can be removed. I mean, if this is removed, then the entire bean shape becomes very clear. But since this gland is present on the top, so the topmost part of the bean shape is not that clear. Okay. But imagine it that it is now removed. So if it is removed, then you will find that on a section, this entire inner mass of the kidney is divisible into two parts. One is this outer part. It basically, in this, the clarity is a bit less. This lines kind of thing that you are noticing. This line kinds of things is present more towards the what would I say, the highlight. Okay. In the periphery, what should be present is only these dots. So this outside periphery, known as the renal cortex, and microscopically is present with only dots. Here, what are these dots for? In a separate video of mine, you can find it what these dots are for. These dots are known as renal corpuscles. Renal corpuscles are the collections of two things. One thing vascular, another thing urinary. The urinary thing is known as the Bowman's capsule. And the vascular thing is known as the glomerulus. Taking both these two things, what is formed as the dots in the renal capsule. Renal corpuscle, sorry. And this entire is formed in the periphery, known as the renal cortex. So, if this outside be the renal cortex, this inside part is the renal medulla. What happens in the renal medulla? This thing, that is the ureters, expands in the highland. So, this expanded part is having the shape of a funnel. We call this expanded part of the renal, the ureters of the renal pelvis. This is the problem. Joints. So, what was the renal pelvis? The upper expanded part of the ureters is the renal pelvis. Now, this renal pelvis branches. You see that there are multiple branches of the renal pelvis. Notice. So, these branches, the bigger one, are known as the major calyces. So, these are the major calyces. Singular is calyx, major calyx. So, this is one major calyx. This is the other major calyx. Okay. And this major calyx again divides into this smaller branch, that is known as the minor calyx. Okay? এগুলো হচ্ছে minor calyx. আর এই minor calyx এর ঠিক মুখে এখানে কতটা ক্লিয়ারলি দেই দেখি এখানে এই যে minor calyx এর মুখে দেখো এই যে দাগগুলো আছে minor calyx এর মুখের দিকে directed. Notice in this particular torso, it's much more technically accurate. This striations, this linear kind of arrangement, is projected as if towards the tip of this minor calyces, and this terminal part of all the different lines are to be termed as renal papillae. What is renal papillae? এই যে সবকটা লাইনকে আমি যদি একত্রিত করি একটা মুখ পাই, that মুখ is the renal papillae. So the renal papillae opens into the minor calyx. The minor calyx joins together from the major calyx, and all the major calyxes together forms the renal pelvis, and the renal pelvis narrows down the guts.
ওয়াইফাই আছে তো
আমি তো কলের ওয়াইফাই করছি
হ্যাঁ যে নেটের অবস্থা খারাপ
এটা আমার মানে আমি শুধু এই কলেজে ক্লাস করার জন্য ফোনটা আমার একটা ফোনই
জানি
তাতেও নেট পাওয়া যায় না কলে
আজকে নেটের প্রবলেম
আচ্ছা তোমাদের কার মোবাইল কি বাইরের সিস্টেমটা একটা বন্ধ হবে হ্যাঁ আরে বন্ধ তো ব্যাপার না যদি বোনসের নাম দিয়ে তোমরা কি জানতে দুটো বোনসকে মিলিয়ে মিলিয়ে জয়েন
হ্যালো স্যার।
50 মিনিটের বেশি রেকর্ডিং করলে তো হবে না। ঠিক আছে, কেটে কেটে এর ফোনে কিছু ওর ফোনে কিছু ক্যামেরা দিয়ে যেটা ড্রাইভে আপলোড করে দেয়, আমি জানি না, ডাউনলোড করে দেওয়া পরে তারপর। আচ্ছা, তো কিডনির যে জায়গাগুলো বলছিল আগের সেশন যতটুকু রেকর্ড হয়েছে তার উপর বেস করে হচ্ছে যে হাইলাম থাকে, হাইলামেতে গিয়ে এই যে ইউরেটার, এই ইউরেটারটা এরকম ফানেলের মতন খুলে যায়। সেই ফানেলের মতন খোলা অংশটার নামটাই হচ্ছে রেনাল পেলভিস। এখানে দেখো এরকম ফানেলের মতন খুলে গেছে এই জায়গাটা, এটা হচ্ছে রেনাল পেলভিস। আর এই যে রেনাল পেলভিসের কিছু ব্রাঞ্চ থাকে ডাইরেক্টলি, যেগুলো রেনাল পেলভিস থেকে ব্রাঞ্চ করেছে দে আর নোন অ্যাজ দ্য মেজর ক্যালিক্স, আর মেজর ক্যালিক্স গুলো আবার সাব ব্রাঞ্চ করেছে সেটা নোন অ্যাজ দ্য মাইনর ক্যালিক্স। ঠিক আছে, এখন দ্য টিপ অফ দ্য মাইনর ক্যালিক্স ইজ দ্য লোকেশন ওয়্যার দিস টিউবস, লেট মি শো ইউ দিস টিউবস, দেয়ার আর কালেকশন অফ টিউবস। দেখতে পাচ্ছ এই একটা কালেকশন অফ টিউবস, এই আর একটা কালেকশন অফ টিউবস। দিস কালেকশন অফ দ্য টিউবস আর নোন অ্যাজ রেনাল পিরামিডস। দেখো একটা পিরামিডের মতন দেখতে, একটা চওড়া বেস আছে, আবার যত এই তোমার এর দিকে যাচ্ছে কি হাইলামের দিকে যখন ডিরেকশনটা আসছে তখন একটা সরু হয়ে যাচ্ছে, তার মানে পিরামিডের মতন, পিরামিডের একটা সরু উপরে থাকে নিচে চওড়া বেস থাকে, পিরামিডস। নাও দিস পিরামিডস ওপেন ইনটু দ্য রেনাল প্যাপিলে। তাহলে যে ইউরিন যেটা তৈরি হচ্ছে, ইউরিন যেটা এই রেনাল টিউবুলসে তৈরি হচ্ছে পিরামিডসে অবস্থিত, সেই ইউরিনটা এন্টার নিচ্ছে প্রথমে মাইনর ক্যালিক্সে, মাইনর ক্যালিক্স থেকে মেজর ক্যালিক্স, মেজর ক্যালিক্স থেকে রেনাল পেলভিস, রেনাল পেলভিস হয়ে তারপর এটা ইউরেটারাসের থ্রু দিয়ে ডাইরেক্টলি ইউরিনারি ব্লাড। ঠিক আছে, সো দিস ইজ দ্য কনসেপ্ট। আচ্ছা, এই যে কিডনিটা, এটা এই এখানে একটু জুম করতে পারলে ভালো হয়, এই জায়গাটা জুম করা যাবে, এই জায়গাটাতে আর জুম কেন জুম করে দিচ্ছি একটু কাছে, in this. Okay, তোমরা সকলে দেখো, the kidney, which is a bean-shaped structure, this kidney is having two distinct zones. The outside zone is the renal cortex, and inside zone where the individual pyramids are seen, this is known as the renal medulla. Cortex and medulla. Microscopically, these cortical tissues are found